My marriage wasn't failing yet, but the warning signs were flashing like Christmas lights on a broken tree. I'm Simon Kincaid, 39 years old, and I fix computers for a living. Not glamorous, but it pays the bills and keeps my hands busy while my mind wanders to places it probably shouldn't go. The first real crack appeared on a Tuesday morning in February. Minneapolis was buried under 3 feet of snow, and my wife Mara was getting ready for another emergency meeting at the gym she practically lived at these days. She stood in front of our bedroom mirror, adjusting her sports bra for the third time. "Don't wait up tonight," she said without looking at me. "Derek's got this new training program he wants me to try." Derek. Always Derek these days. Derek Jones owned Fit Zone, the trendy gym where Mara spent more time than she did at home. He was 30, built like a protein shake advertisement, and had the kind of smile that made middle-aged women forget they were married. "Another late session?" I asked, not bothering to hide the sarcasm. "It's called dedication, Simon. You should try it sometime." Ouch, but not unexpected. Mara had been taking shots at my appearance for months now. I'd put on maybe 15 pounds since we got married 5 years ago. But according to her, I'd transformed into some kind of couch-dwelling monster. I watched her grab her phone and check it for messages. The screen lit up with a notification that made her smile in a way she hadn't smiled at me in months. She quickly turned the phone face down, but not before I caught a glimpse of the sender. Derek, with some kind of water drop emoji next to his name. Classy. "Zoe's got practice until 6, Mara continued, referring to my 15-year-old stepdaughter. "Can you pick up Liam from daycare?" Of course, I always picked up my 6-year-old son. Mara was usually too busy with her brand partnerships and social media empire to handle mundane parenting tasks. She grabbed her gym bag and headed for the door, pausing only to check her reflection one more time. "Oh, and see? My car's been acting weird with the Bluetooth. Think you could take a look?" Sure thing. I'm good with technology. It's what I do." After she left, I sat in the kitchen drinking coffee and thinking about how we'd gotten here. 5 years ago, Mara had been different, warmer. She'd laughed at my jokes and actually seemed to enjoy my company. Now I felt like a roommate she barely tolerated. My phone buzzed. Charlie Brennan, my best friend and owner of Murphy's Tavern, was texting about grabbing drinks later. Charlie had warned me about Mara from the beginning, but I'd been too smitten to listen. Now his "I told you so" looks were getting harder to ignore. I spent the morning at my shop, Kincaid Tech Solutions, fixing laptops and trying not to think about my wife's mysterious late-night training sessions. Around noon, I decided to surprise Mara with lunch. Call it curiosity, call it stupidity. But I wanted to see this Derek character in action. Fit Zone occupied a converted warehouse downtown, all exposed brick and industrial lighting. Through the windows, I could see Mara doing squats while Derek spotted her, his hands positioned a little too close to her waist for my comfort. I didn't go in. Instead, I sat in my truck and watched them interact. The way she laughed at whatever he was saying. The way he touched her shoulder when demonstrating exercises. The way they looked at each other when they thought nobody was watching. That evening, I fixed Mara's car Bluetooth, like she'd asked. It was a simple connectivity issue. But while I was in there, I made a small adjustment. I synced her phone to mine as a secondary device. Call it insurance. 2 nights later, my insurance policy paid off. I was in the garage, working on an old computer, when I heard Mara's car pull into the driveway. Her phone automatically connected to the car's Bluetooth system, and suddenly a man's voice filled the speakers. "Last night was incredible, babe. I can't stop thinking about you." I walked outside just as Mara was frantically trying to disconnect her phone. Her face had gone white. "Trouble with the Bluetooth?" I asked, keeping my voice level. It's nothing. Wrong number." Sounded like Derek to me. She stared at me for a long moment, and I saw something shift in her expression. The pretense was over. "Simon, save it." I turned and walked back into the garage. "Guess you forgot to log out." That night, lying in bed next to my cheating wife, I made a decision. If Mara wanted to play games, I'd show her what a real player looked like. The thing about being an IT guy is that people underestimate what you can do with technology. They see you as the harmless nerd who fixes their computers and resets their passwords. They forget that you have access to their digital lives. Mara had been sloppy with her security. She used the same password for everything, FitLife 2024, with variations. It took me exactly 12 minutes to access her secret Instagram account, the one she thought I didn't know about. What I found there made my stomach turn. Love of his screenshots of our text conversations with laughing face emojis, photos of Derek shirtless with captions like, "My real man," messages to her girlfriends calling me boring and pathetic, plans for their future together, complete with discussions about how to get me out of the picture. But the worst part was a voice memo she'd sent to her best friend Bree. "He's so clueless, it's almost sad. Derek makes me feel alive again. Simon just makes me feel nothing." I sat in my office until 3 in the morning, methodically documenting everything. Screenshots, saved messages, downloaded photos. Then I crafted my response. Mara had a live stream Q&A session every Thursday at 7 p.m. She'd built up quite a following as a fitness motivation influencer, mostly suburban moms looking for inspiration. This week's topic was keeping your marriage strong while pursuing your dreams. The irony was delicious. I scheduled everything to post automatically at 7:15 p.m., right in the middle of her stream. Her private messages with Derek, the photos, the voice memos, all of it uploaded to her main Instagram story with the caption, "Oops, wrong account, #authentic, #real talk." I was at Murphy's Tavern when it happened, sitting at the bar with Charlie and watching Mara's follower count plummet in real time. "Holy cow, see," Charlie said, staring at his phone. "Did you see what your wife just posted?" "Can't say I have." I took a sip of beer and tried to look innocent. My phone started buzzing. Mara was calling, then texting, then calling again. I let it go to voicemail. "Simon, what did you do? How did you call me back right now?" Charlie raised an eyebrow. "You want to tell me what's going on?" "Just giving my wife a taste of her own medicine." The fallout was immediate and brutal. Mara's brand partnerships started dropping her within hours. Her fitness community turned on her. The comments on her posts were savage. "Cheater, fake. What about your poor husband?" But Mara wasn't going down without a fight. The next evening, she invited my boss, Jim Patterson, and a few coworkers over for dinner. It was supposed to be a casual get-together, but I could tell she was planning something. "Simon's been under a lot of stress lately," she told the group as we sat around our dining room table. "I'm worried about him." "I'm fine," I said, but she was already pulling out her laptop. "I think you should see this," she said to Jim, then accidentally projected a document onto our TV screen. It was a therapy session transcript from 2 years ago, when I'd been dealing with some lingering issues from my military service. Private thoughts about anger, about feeling disconnected, about sometimes wanting to just disappear. "Mara," I said quietly, "turn it off. I'm just concerned," she continued, addressing Jim directly. "He's been acting erratically, paranoid. I'm scared he might do something." She let the implication hang in the air. My coworkers shifted uncomfortably in their chairs. "That's enough." I stood up and turned off the TV. "Dinner's over." After everyone left, Mara cornered me in the kitchen. "How does it feel, Simon, having your private business exposed? Is that what this is? Tit for tat?" "This is me protecting myself. You want to play dirty? I can play dirtier." She was right about that. The next morning, Jim called me into his office. "Simon, I think you should take some time off. Get your head straight." "My head is fine. Look, I like you. You're good at what you do. But after last night, Mara's concerned about your mental state, and frankly, so am I." So there I was, suspended from my job because my cheating wife had weaponized my therapy records. But two could play that game. I still had admin access to FitZone's member app from when I'd helped Derek set up their system 6 months ago. He'd never revoked my permissions, sloppy security, but his loss was my gain. The app tracked member locations during workouts, ostensibly for safety purposes, but it also meant I could see exactly where Derek and Mara went during their training sessions. It turns out they weren't always at the gym. I followed their GPS trail to a cheap motel on Highway 35, then to Derek's apartment, then to a cabin up north that belonged to Derek's family. I documented everything, took photos, and waited for the right moment to use them. That moment came sooner than expected. Derek Jones wasn't just a cheating personal trainer. He was an engaged cheating personal trainer. His fiancée, Amanda Walsh, was a sweet kindergarten teacher who posted photos of their upcoming wedding on Facebook with heartbreaking regularity. I felt bad for Amanda. She didn't deserve what was coming, but she deserved the truth. The video I'd captured of Derek and Mara in his office was explicit enough to leave no doubt about what was happening. but not so graphic that it crossed any legal lines. I edited it down to the most damning 30 seconds and created several anonymous email accounts. The first email went to Amanda with a simple message. Thought you should know what your fiancé does during his private training sessions. Sorry. The second went to Mara's family group chat. Her parents, her sister, her brother-in-law. People who'd welcomed me into their family and deserved to know why their daughter was destroying her marriage. The third went to Minneapolis Gym Gossip, a local blog that thrived on fitness industry drama. By noon, my phone was ringing off the hook. Mara's sister called first. Simon, what the heck is going on? Mom's crying, Dad's talking about driving down there with his hunting rifle, and Mara won't answer her phone. Ask your sister, I said. She's the one with all the answers these days. The blog post went viral within hours. Local gym owner caught in steamy affair with married member. The comments section was brutal, but the real entertainment came from watching Mara's support system crumble. Her best friend Bree, who'd been complicit in the affair, suddenly developed amnesia about her role in the whole thing. I had no idea it was so serious, Bree posted on Facebook. I thought it was just harmless flirting. I'm disgusted by this behavior and can no longer support it. She then proceeded to leak screenshots of her private conversations with Mara, including some choice quotes about me that made Mara look even worse. Zoe, my stepdaughter, was caught in the middle. Mara had been filling her head with poison for months, bribing her with expensive clothes and concert tickets to take her side against me. Now Zoe was posting angry TikToks about toxic masculinity and controlling stepfathers. The posts hurt, but I understood the game Mara was playing. Zoe was 15 and impressionable. She'd been manipulated by an expert. Meanwhile, Derek was dealing with his own problems. Amanda had called off the wedding and kicked him out of their shared apartment. His gym was getting negative reviews from people who'd seen the video. Several of his female clients had canceled their memberships. I decided it was time to apply some direct pressure. Derek drove a bright red Mustang with custom rims and a sound system that could wake the neighbors 3 blocks away. He was proud of that car, always posting photos of it on social media with captions like "Beast Mode" and "Living my best life." I waited until 2 in the morning, then paid his apartment complex a visit. I didn't damage anything permanently, but I did leave my mark. Protein powder in the gas tank would gum up his engine without causing permanent harm. Glitter bombs hidden in the air vents would make his next few drives sparkle. And a note on his windshield. Next time, keep your dumbbells to yourself. Derek found the mess the next morning and immediately called Mara in a panic. I know this because I was still monitoring her phone through the Bluetooth connection. Someone trashed my car. This is insane. Your husband is insane. Calm down, Mara said. We'll figure this out. Figure it out? The guy's clearly unhinged. What if he comes after us next? He won't. Simon's all talk. He doesn't have the guts for real confrontation. Wrong again, sweetheart. That afternoon, Jim called to tell me I was being put on indefinite leave pending a mental health evaluation. Apparently, Mara had been calling the office, expressing concerns about my increasingly erratic behavior. She's worried you might hurt yourself or someone else, Jim explained. I have to take these things seriously, Simon. You understand. I understood perfectly. Mara was systematically destroying my life, using my own vulnerabilities against me. But she'd made one crucial mistake. She'd underestimated me. That evening, I drove to Murphy's Tavern to commiserate with Charlie. The bar was nearly empty, just a few regulars nursing their drinks and watching basketball on the ancient TV. You look like someone kicked your dog, Charlie said, sliding a beer across the bar. Worse, someone kicked my life. I filled him in on the latest developments. Charlie listened without judgment, occasionally shaking his head in disgust. You know what your problem is, he said finally. Enlighten me. You're playing defense. She attacks, you respond. She escalates, you react. You need to get ahead of this thing. What do you suggest? Charlie grinned, and I recognized the look. It was the same expression he'd worn in high school when he was about to suggest something monumentally stupid, but undeniably entertaining. Time to go on offense, buddy. Time to show your wife what happens when you corner a guy with nothing left to lose. Mara filed for legal separation on a Monday morning, citing irreconcilable differences and concerns about mental stability. Her lawyer was Amanda Price, a shark in a business suit who specialized in taking cheating husbands to the cleaners. The papers were delivered to my shop by a smug process server who seemed to enjoy his job a little too much. Along with the separation papers was a restraining order request and a motion for full custody of Liam, with supervised visitation for me. The accusations were brutal and largely fabricated. Increasingly erratic behavior, potential for violence, substance abuse concerns. She'd taken my therapy records, my suspension from work, and the incident with Derek's car, and woven them into a narrative that painted me as an unstable, potentially dangerous man. But the real gut punch was Zoe's statement, attached to the custody motion. 3 pages of accusations about my controlling behavior and anger issues. Stories about me screaming at Mara, I'd raised my voice exactly once in 5 years, and threatening Derek. I'd never even spoken to the man directly. The statement was clearly coached, probably written by Mara herself, but it would carry weight with a judge. A teenager's testimony about abuse was taken seriously, as it should be. That afternoon, I came home to find the locks changed and my belongings in boxes on the front porch. Mara had moved fast. I was loading my stuff into my truck when she appeared in the doorway, Derek lurking behind her like a bodyguard. "You can see Liam on weekends," she said. "Supervised visits until you get help." "I don't need help, Mara. I need honesty." "Honesty?" She laughed, and it was a sound I'd never heard from her before. Cold and sharp. "You want honesty? Here's honesty. I haven't loved you in 2 years, maybe longer. You're boring, Simon. You're safe and predictable and boring, and I can't stand it anymore." Derek stepped forward, puffing out his chest. "I think you should leave, man. You're upsetting her." I looked at him for a long moment. He was bigger than me, younger, more muscular. In a fair fight, he'd probably win. But I wasn't interested in fair fights anymore. "You're right," I said. "I should go. But Derek? You might want to tell your side chick about Mara. I'd hate for there to be any more surprises." Yeah, the color drained from his face. Mara spun around to stare at him. "What side chick?" she demanded. I climbed in my truck and rode denied. And he wasn't just cheat on his fiancée with my wife. He was also seeing a young trickster who worked at the studio next to his gym. Apparently Derek had a type, fitness-obsessed women with relationship problems. I rented a furnished apartment across town and spent the evening planning my next move. Mara thought she'd won by kicking me out of the house, but she'd actually done me a favor. Now I could operate without her watching my every move. 3 days later, Mara threw a freedom party at what used to be our house. She invited her fitness friends, her family, and half the neighborhood. The theme seemed to be celebrating my escape from my awful husband. I know this because our neighbor, Mrs. Henderson, had doorbell cameras that captured everything. She'd always liked me better than Mara anyway, and she was happy to share the footage. The party was in full swing when I put my plan into action. Mara had connected her phone to our home sound system for music, but she'd forgotten that I still had admin access to our smart home network. At exactly 9 p.m., right when the party was at its peak, I remotely connected to the sound system and began broadcasting audio from one of Mara and Derek's more intimate encounters. The recording was crystal clear, complete with Mara's commentary about my inadequacies as a husband. The reaction was immediate and spectacular. Guests started leaving in droves. Mara's parents looked mortified. Her brother actually threw up in the bushes. But the best part was watching Derek try to explain to Mara why he'd told Crystal the same things he'd been telling her. Apparently, they'd had quite the confrontation after I'd planted that seed of doubt. My phone rang 20 minutes later. "You're sick," Mara screamed. "You're a sick, twisted person." "I'm just sharing your authentic self with the world," I replied. "Isn't that what your brand is all about? Authenticity? I'm going to destroy you for this." "You already tried. How's that working out?" The next morning brought fresh chaos. Derek's gym was flooded with negative reviews and cancellations. Several of his business partners were reconsidering their investments. The local news had picked up the story, running it as a cautionary tale about social media oversharing. But Mara wasn't done fighting. She'd frozen our joint accounts and filed additional motions with the court, trying to paint me as a cyber stalker and a threat to public safety. Unfortunately for her, I'd anticipated this move. 6 months earlier, when I'd first started suspecting the affair, I'd quietly moved most of our savings into a trust fund for Liam. Legally bulletproof and completely out of Mara's reach. When she discovered what I'd done, she called me in a rage. "You can't do this. That's my money too." "Actually, it's Liam's money now. I thought you'd approve. You're always talking about securing his future. You planned this. You've been planning this for months. You taught me to think ahead, babe." Guess I was a better student than you realized. That weekend, I got my first supervised visit with Liam. The court-appointed supervisor was a kind woman named Janet, who seemed more interested in her crossword puzzle than in monitoring my interactions with my son. Liam was confused and hurt by the separation, asking questions I couldn't answer honestly. How do you explain to a 6-year-old that his mother is a cheater and his stepfather is a fool? Are you and mommy getting divorced? He asked, as we built a Lego castle. I don't know, buddy. Maybe. Is it because of Derek? Out of the mouths of babes. What do you think about Derek? Liam considered this seriously. He's okay, I guess. But he's not my daddy. You're my daddy. That simple statement hit me harder than all of Mara's accusations combined. Whatever else happened, I wasn't going to let her take my son away from me. The investigation into Derek's gym began on a Tuesday. I'd anonymously tipped off the state health department about some questionable supplement sales happening out of FitZone's back office. Not illegal exactly, but definitely against regulations. I knew about the supplements because Derek had bragged about them to Mara in one of their recorded conversations. Exclusive stuff, he'd called it. Not available to the general public. Translation: unregulated substances being sold without proper licensing. While Derek dealt with inspectors and potential fines, I focused on rebuilding my relationship with Zoe. My stepdaughter had been poisoned against me, but she wasn't stupid. She was starting to see through Mara's manipulation. The breakthrough came when Bree, desperate to salvage her own reputation, leaked more of her private conversations with Mara, including one where Mara admitted to paying Zoe $50 for every social media post that made me look bad. She's been bribing you? I asked Zoe during one of our awkward coffee meetings. Zoe stared into her latte, ashamed. She said it was just spending money, for supporting her during a difficult time. What else did she ask you to do? Record you. When you got angry or said something that sounded threatening. She gave me $100 for that video of you yelling about Derek. The video where I'd called Derek a muscle-bound idiot, after finding out about the affair. Mara had edited out the context, making it seem like an unprovoked rant. I'm sorry, Zoe whispered. I didn't know she was going to use it in court. It's not your fault. Your mom can be very persuasive. That afternoon, Zoe posted a new TikTok. This one told a different story about our family situation, including screenshots of Venmo payments from her mother for content creation. The video went viral, generating thousands of comments about parental manipulation and divorce tactics. Mara was furious, but there was nothing she could do without admitting to the bribery scheme. Meanwhile, Derek was having problems of his own. The health department investigation had uncovered several violations, resulting in hefty fines and a temporary closure of his gym. His business partners were pulling out, and his landlord was threatening eviction for unpaid rent. But I wasn't done with Derek yet. I'd been monitoring his social media accounts, and I knew he was planning a comeback event at a rented space downtown, a fitness expo where he'd try to rebuild his reputation and attract new investors. The night before the expo, I paid the venue a visit. Not to cause damage, but to make a small adjustment to their sound system, the same kind of adjustment I'd made to Mara's car months earlier. The expo was well attended, mostly by people curious to see the infamous Derek Jones in person. He gave a speech about overcoming adversity and learning from mistakes, positioning himself as a victim of social media mob mentality. Then I activated my little surprise. Derek's phone, connected to the venue's sound system, began broadcasting his private conversations with Crystal, his yoga instructor side piece. The audience heard him making the same promises to her that he'd made to Mara, using the same lines, the same fake sincerity. The crowd turned hostile quickly. Someone threw a protein bar at the stage. Others demanded refunds. Derek fled through a back exit, leaving his remaining business partners to face the angry mob. That evening, Mara called me for what would be our final negotiation. What do you want? She asked, her voice tired and defeated. I want my son. I want joint custody, no supervision, no restrictions. Fine. What else? I want you to admit what you did, publicly. No more lies about my mental health or my behavior. Tell the truth about the affair, the manipulation, the bribes. And if I don't, then I release everything else I have, the financial records showing how you've been stealing from Liam's college fund, the messages where you and Derek planned to have me committed, the recording of you coaching Zoe on what to say in court. There was a long silence. You've been recording everything, she said finally. Everything that matters. You're not the man I married. No, I'm not. That man was naive enough to trust you. This man knows better. I hate you, I know. But you're going to do what I asked anyway, because the alternative is worse. She hung up without agreeing, but I knew she'd come around. Mara was many things, but she wasn't stupid. She could see which way the wind was blowing. The next morning, Derek's remaining assets were seized by creditors. His gym equipment, his car, even his precious sound system. He'd leveraged everything on his failing business, and now he was losing it all. I felt a moment of satisfaction watching the repo men load his Mustang onto a truck. Then I remembered that this was just the beginning. The confrontation I'd been building toward finally came on a rainy Thursday night in March. Mara had texted me earlier, demanding a face-to-face meeting at her apartment. She claimed she had evidence that would destroy me in court, and she wanted to make a deal. I knew it was a trap, but I went anyway. I was done hiding, done playing defense. It was time to end this thing once and for all. Mara's new apartment was in a converted warehouse downtown, the kind of trendy space that cost twice what it was worth. She'd furnished it with Derek's help, though most of his contributions had been repossessed by now. When I arrived, I found Mara, Derek, and Zoe waiting for me in the living room. They'd arranged themselves like a tribunal, with Mara in the center chair and Derek standing behind her like a bodyguard. "Sit down, Simon," Mara said, gesturing to a chair across from them. "I'll stand, thanks. Suit yourself." She pulled out her phone and set it on the coffee table between us. "I've been recording our conversations for weeks. I have evidence of you threatening me, harassing Derek, and stalking both of us. Do you now? I also have witnesses." She nodded toward Zoe. "People who've seen your behavior firsthand." Zoe looked uncomfortable, avoiding my eyes. I felt sorry for her. She was still just a kid caught in her mother's web. "Here's my offer," Mara continued. "You sign over full custody of Liam. You stop interfering in my life, and I won't press charges for harassment and stalking." Derek stepped forward, trying to look intimidating. "And if you don't take the deal, we're going to make sure everyone knows what kind of man you really are." I looked at the three of them and started laughing. Not a bitter laugh or a sarcastic chuckle, but genuine amusement. "What's so funny?" Mara demanded. "You are, all of you." I pulled out my own phone and set it next to hers on the table. "You think you've been recording me? I've been recording everything since this whole mess started." I pressed play, and Derek's voice filled the room. "The old man's gotta go. We need to find a way to get him committed or something. Make him look crazy." Mara's face went white. "Where did you get that?" "Your car, actually. Amazing what you can hear through a Bluetooth connection." I pressed another button. "But that's not the best part." Now it was Mara's voice. "Zoe, I need you to say he threatened you. Not physically, just verbally. Make it sound scary. I'll give you $200. Zoe gasped. "Mom, you said nobody would ever hear that." "I have hours of this stuff," I continued. Conversations about framing me for domestic violence. Plans to drain our accounts and disappear to Miami. Derek talking about how he's going to break that loser's spirit. Should I keep going? Derek lunged toward me, but I was ready. I sidestepped his clumsy charge and let him crash into the coffee table, scattering phones and magazines everywhere. "Careful, Derek. You might pull a muscle." He scrambled to his feet, face red with rage and embarrassment. "You think you're so smart?" "I think I'm prepared." I held up a small device. "This is broadcasting everything to a live stream. Say hello to the internet, folks." Mara grabbed for the device, but I pulled it away. No touching. We're live on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube simultaneously. Amazing what you can do with modern technology." "You're insane," she whispered. "No, I'm thorough." I turned to address the camera. "Ladies and gentlemen, meet my wife Mara and her boyfriend Derek. They've been plotting against me for months, trying to steal my son and destroy my reputation. But I've been documenting everything." I played more recordings, each one more damaging than the last. Mara admitting she'd never loved me. Derek bragging about his other affairs. Plans to have me declared mentally incompetent. The comments on the live stream were brutal. Thousands of viewers watching my wife's reputation crumble in real time. "Stop it," Mara begged. "Please, just stop." "Why? This is what you wanted, right? Public humiliation? Having your private business exposed for everyone to see?" Zoe was crying now, finally understanding how thoroughly her mother had manipulated her. "I didn't know," she kept saying. I didn't know it was this bad. Derek tried one more time to play the tough guy. Turn off the camera, old man, or I'll turn it off for you. Go ahead and try. I smiled at him. But remember, we're live. Thousands of people are watching. You really want to assault someone on camera? He hesitated, and in that moment of uncertainty, I knew I'd won. The final blow came when I played the recording of Mara and Derek planning to take Liam away from me permanently. Not just custody, but a complete disappearance. New identities, new city, new life. We'll tell him his father abandoned him, Mara's voice said through my phone's speaker. Kids are resilient. He'll forget Simon eventually. The live stream exploded with outrage. Even Mara's remaining supporters turned against her. Comments flooded in calling her a monster, a child abuser, worse. I walked to the window and looked out at the rain-soaked street. Police cars were pulling up, probably called by concerned viewers who'd been watching the stream. It's over, Mara, I said without turning around. Your influencer career, your reputation, your schemes, all of it. I pulled out a $1 bill and dropped it on the coffee table in front of her. Your share of everything we built together. The police knocked on the door, and I went to let them in. They'd seen enough of the live stream to understand what was happening. Derek was taken away for outstanding warrants I'd helped them discover. Mara was left sitting in her expensive apartment, surrounded by the wreckage of her dreams. As I walked out into the rain, I heard Zoe calling after me. Simon, wait! I turned back to see her standing in the doorway, tears streaming down her face. I'm sorry, she said, for everything. I should have known better. You're 15, I replied. You trusted your mother. That's not your fault. Can we try to fix this? Our relationship, I mean. I looked at this kid who'd been used as a weapon against me, who'd been bribed and manipulated and lied to. And I saw someone worth saving. Yeah, I said. We can try. I walked away from that apartment building, knowing I'd won more than just a victory over my cheating wife. I'd reclaimed my dignity, protected my son, and maybe even saved my stepdaughter from becoming like her mother. The rain was cold on my face, but I didn't mind. It felt like washing away the last 5 years of lies and betrayal. My phone buzzed with a text from my lawyer. Custody hearing moved up. Judge wants to see you tomorrow. Bring the recordings. I smiled and kept walking. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but tonight I was free. The war was over, and for the first time in months, I'd won something that mattered. Bumdub Mo. November 14th, 2025, 0 hours 9 minutes and 56 seconds.